Hello, friends. Have you ever been puzzled by the various chemical changes in our environment? Now, these chemical changes bring about the production of various chemical substances. Now, these chemical substances could be organic substances, that is, natural substances that have been produced by nature, such as the sweat from human body, urine, and even when you look at plants, glucose being produced during photosynthesis. And also, these substances could be inorganic substances, being produced in the lab, such as for example, sodium chloride, that simple salt being produced through neutralization reaction, and also even various drugs that have been produced in various labs. Now, if you've been puzzled by all these changes, now this is the best avenue to explain all these changes, and we can only explain this through this very exposition known as the laws of chemical combination. Now, this very exposition talks about the various breathtaking work that have been done by certain set of scientists over the years to explain the mystery behind how various chemical substances combine together to form new and more complex substances, or how various chemical substances get broken down to form simpler new substances. So about four major laws govern these characteristics of various chemicals combining or breaking down. And here are the four major principles. We call them laws. The first law we have is what we call the law of conservation, the law of conservation or indestructibility, the law of conservation or indestructibility of matter or mass. That's the first law we have. And the next law we have is the law of constant or definite, the law of constant or definite proportion. That's the next law we have. Then the next law we have is the law of multiple proportion. And then the final law we have is the law of reciprocal proportion. The law of reciprocal proportion is the next law we have. The law of reciprocal proportion. Reciprocal proportion. Now, all these laws are used to explain the various ways, different chemical substances combine together or get broken down to form new substances. Okay, today we're going to be discussing the first law of chemical combination, which is known as the law of conservation or indestructibility of matter or mass. Now, this very law talks about how the various quantity of chemicals reacting together to form a new, chemical substance, how they maintain their constituent quantity and effectiveness in the newly formed, chemical substance. So, and this very law explains how certain, substances such as drugs, it could even be, body cream or air cream, how the substances maintain consistency as per quality delivered, over the years. The reason or the fact is simply this: the amount of substances or the quantity of substances, chemical substances reacting together to bring about these various substances that have been produced, remain constant. And that's what we're about to explain in this very, first law of chemical combination, which, according to these two great scientists, the first scientist, a Russian scientist by the name Mikhail Lomonosov. Mikhail Lomonosov in 1756 started working on the law of conservation of matter. But about 3 years after, a French scientist known as Antoine Lavoisier finished this work and propounded, as about 33 years after, which is 1789, 33 years after this French scientist Mikhail Lomonosov started working on the law of conservation of matter. And they propounded the law which states in an isolated system of chemical reaction, In an isolated system of chemical reaction, comma, matter can't be destroyed. Matter can be destroyed or created, but can be can be transformed or changed, or can be transformed or changed from one form to another. This is what the law of conservation or indestructibility of matter states, according to Antonio Laviosa in 1789.